Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather, John, and Mike. So happy to have you today, Mike, where we help you with your professional and personal growth, helping you say yes to all the scary stuff. And today we got a special guest, Mike Gillespie, who is a badass dad, epic living coach, and the entrepreneur who left the safety of the government job in 2014 to embark on a journey towards a more purposeful and fulfilling life. Founder of Epic Living, the Epic Living Academy, Mike guides his clients to live an epic life through coaching programs and retreats. Ooh, Mike, I'm going to have to connect with you on that. Currently, he's dedicated to empowering dads in the Power Dad program, fostering a community-based focused on freedom, fun, and creating a greater impact. Well, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, Mike, tell us a little bit more about your Epic Living program. Give us some insights.
Yeah. So Epic Living is all about understanding the things that make you happy and just doing more of it. Just living with more fun and excitement and fulfillment in your life. And just helping more people enjoy that type of lifestyle. And we'll pop into it. I'll share a little bit about my story and how it kind of came about.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Mike. Heather, it is Celebration Friday. I'm super excited to be here, and especially Mike, to have you as a guest on with us. Just lights me up. So, Heather, what's your celebration for this week?
Oh, yay. Thank you, John. And Mike, thank you for joining us today. For all the listeners me and Mike, we met on an amazing trip to Bhutan. So what I can tell you about Mike is that he truly lives epic living all the time and is a great travel partner and also a great person to just hang out with and, calm your mind. You have such a calming energy, Mike. And I love that. So you're, looking for this adventure, but then you also know that on the other side of things is to bring everything to a calm state. And, that is one of the things that we teach on here, but back to, we'll get into a little bit of that a little bit more. But Celebration Friday. So before I celebrate what my week looks like this week, I want to put it out there to all of our listeners, because remember, Celebration Fridays is about celebrating with each and every one of you. And when we create the energy of celebration, our brain automatically reframes itself, looks for the things that are good, and guess what? Finds it, because our brain is always searching for those problems. So John, this week, it was golden, golden, golden. I had to go, or I didn't have to go. I was excited to go to meet a friend for dinner. We always meet at Moxie's at a mall. And then as I drove into the mall, I thought to myself, oh, we should have picked a different restaurant because the mall is already just a little crazy. And then I remembered my flow and manifestation skills, and boom, there was that parking spot, the very first one. So I was in flow this week, and I was so happy that was my moment. But, I joke about the parking spot. I'm actually celebrating friendship and connection and getting together with people that just activate our brainwaves to think differently. And this friend definitely makes me, and shout out to David, makes me think differently all of the time. We ended up talking about Jaws and all kinds of other stuff that scares us. So, we were on theme about talking about things that scare us and doing it anyway. So that is my celebration. Mike, I want to hand it over to you. What are you celebrating? And again, before you share your story, anyone wants to share their story with us, we want to hear what you're celebrating. So if you're listening to us now, join us in this conversation. Mike, what's your week been like?
Great job in attracting that parking spot. I love the idea of Celebration Fridays. I don't think we celebrate enough. So thanks for the reminder to do this. For me, I'll just share just a couple quick ones. Welcome to new dad to our Power Dad community, which is awesome. And I started to get back into investing, and I've been doing pretty well over the last month. And I started hosting investment calls for the dads. So we had our first one 2 weeks ago. And we're having our next one today. So it felt really good to be on the call. So those are a couple of things I'm celebrating.
Ooh, I love that. And it's really on point for what you do for a living, because we're not just relationships, we're not just our career, we're not just one thing, we're all things, including our financial and our bank account and how we flow our money, because of course money is energy, and so we're putting the right energy out into the world, that will come back to us. So that is amazing. John, what about you? you celebrating this week?
Yeah, no, this week, well, thanks, Mike. I love how, you're bringing community and people together, especially dads, right? So that's amazing. Yeah, in terms of, for me, what I'm celebrating is just being in flow. Like, so we're in the process of doing that reflection piece for the year. How's the year been? What are we doing? What's changed? And, all the things that have come in and out of our lives over this last, and Heather, both of us, we've had a big year. We talked about this, I think it was
Oh yeah.
the day before. And, I finally feel like I'm in flow. Like it just, not that anything is difficult or challenging. Things just are coming together really nicely. All right. And who would think going into December, right? Like, December should be one of those moments where people would typically just wind down. And I'm like, I'm picking up. I'm feeling I'm a steamroller just going, the inertia's there, the momentum's there. It's just been beautiful being in flow and just, reaching this point. And I think this is what we all work for, right? Like it doesn't matter where we are in our lives, but at some point we're working towards something, and I'm finally in flow. And I just wanted to take a quick second to celebrate Crystal. She's celebrating the 1st of December. Crystal was also one of our past guests, and it's a reminder of all the little micro moments throughout the year. I actually had a moment this week to sit on Crystal's meditations, and it was so great. It was so great just to ground and be connected. And it's amazing. And we're all connected, right? Like there's that, when they talk about universal laws, the oneness, the law of oneness is we're all connected, right? We're all working in each other's energy, and what we give out, we get back. So Mike, I'm so happy to have you here to, be in your energy and being able to share your story with everybody here.
Well, I'm happy to be here and happy to share.
So, Mike, one of the things that we love to hear from our guests is, a moment in their life where they said yes to something that scared them and you did it anyways. And, this whole podcast is actually on the premise of the Say Yes Movement podcast is just that. Say yes to yourself, say yes to your life, say yes to something that scares you so that you can nudge yourself out of that comfort zone and see new possibilities. And before we get into your story, I also want to do a shout out. Crystal, thank you for sharing that you're celebrating all the micro moments. And part of this Celebration Fridays is activating our brain to always look for those micro moments. And then, of course, I'm going to use December as the perfect moment because I've been very festive. You can see behind in my living room. This is the time to put a bow on everything, to tie a bow around what you've accomplished. And yes, you might be looking ahead and saying, wow, like I've got so much more to do. But if you don't look behind and put that bow on it, I'll tell you, this is how you get activated in maximum energy. So for everyone listening out there, this is what reflection end of year looks like and why it's so important to do. And again, on December 14th, we are doing a workshop together. Join us for that. We'll put the link below, but we want to see all of you on that workshop with us so that you can actually do the reflection process. All right, Mike, I want to hear your Say Yes story because I don't even know what story you're going to tell because I know you have so many of them, but we want to hear what did you do to get out of your comfort zone? What did you say yes to?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. My biggest one was me quitting my job. So I worked for the government. I worked in IT, fixing computers. Yeah, it was a very tough decision to do. It was quite the journey to make it happen. Lots of things were kind of holding me there. I just got to a point in my work where I'm like, I don't see myself kind of retiring here. I looked around, I just didn't really enjoy the environment. It just wasn't, I just wasn't getting fulfillment. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. Had a little bit of a background in real estate investing, was doing a little bit of dabbling on the side. And I just got to a point, I'm like, I like doing that more. I don't know how that happens, but at the time I was surrounded by a lot of people that were kind of holding me back and kind of keeping me there longer than I should. So, you've probably heard of the whole golden handcuffs, the regular paycheck, the pension, the benefits. It was hard to leave the safety and security of that job. And and I got promoted and I just started liking it less and less. I was following other people's versions of success. Yeah, and then I'm like, I want to try something different. I don't know what it is. So I just I took a couple leave of absences from work and just started playing around. Just, do I like this? Do I like that? And then yeah, eventually I happened into I started doing some real estate business coaching. And then eventually I asked my employer for another year leave of absence. They said yes. And then that evolved more into kind of like holistic coaching, which eventually led to epic living. And then I asked for a third year leave of absence. And they're like, no, you gotta figure out what you're doing here. So yeah, so I used the leave of absence as kind of like a safety net because my confidence wasn't fully there yet. Yeah, so that's kind of the quick version of it. And I remember a couple of conversations I had with family and friends. They're like, why would you want to leave this? This is a dream job. You're making all this money. And I'm like, but I'm not happy. And they're like, yeah, but you're making all this money. And then I'm like, and it was at that point, like, it was like, I need to, maybe up level the group of people that I hang around. Yeah. So I kind of remember that in part of the journey.
That is such an amazing journey, John. I know there's parallels galore.
Yeah. No, I know. I was just gonna say that. I'm like, Mike, this is why I feel like I know you, right? Because my background too is IT, right? Like
really?
Stepping away. Yeah. I 22 years. Actually, I was talking about it this week with a colleague of mine.
Wow.
How do you make that leap, right? Like, how do you secure a job? You're only a few years away from pension. Like, why would you do that, right? Right? Like and I'm sure this is what you got as you were going through the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So my question for you is, what was, outside of those moments, right? Like it sounded like you had a series of moments that you went through to make that departure.
Yeah.
But what was that one defining moment? Because I believe there's always that one defining moment that changes us. What was that for you?
Yeah. So I think there was a really big one where, like I got promoted a bunch and I had to go to Toronto a little bit more often than I wanted. And I remember going to Toronto one day, it was just crazy busy traffic. And then the meeting room that they had booked for us was double booked. And I was sitting in this it almost felt like a closet. And there was like 8 of us kind of packed in there. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this again. And, like there were other things kind of leading up to it as well. But that was, if I had to pick one, it's like, okay, we're doing this other thing. And yeah, from that point forward, like I reached out to, HR and just started asking what my options are around like leave of absences and various things like that. So
what I love about that story, Mike, is that moment was not a big problem. Like it wasn't that something massive happened. It was just looking around your environment with new eyes and saying, wow, this is not fulfilling for me. And feeling that in your body, right? Like you were really, as you were telling the story, you're looking around, but at the moment you were feeling some other part of energy pulling you in the way. But I love also that you didn't know what that other thing was. And so many people wait till they're ready, till they know the answers, till I've got enough money in the bank. And, we know that epic living doesn't work like that. In fact, epic living, people are waiting till retirement. And me and John talk about this all the time. There's no do-overs. There's no waiting till retirement. Epic living is every single day, and it's a choice. And, trying different things. So for our listeners out there that are sitting there thinking, wow, that feels so similar to how I'm feeling right now, there are other choices. And when you wait till you're ready, or you wait till you know how, what happens is you're past the point. And in fact, if you take action, then the how shows up. So this conversation with HR, taking a leave of absence, but like, Mike, let me just be out there, just like some of the other people. You're a dad, you have bills to pay. Like, how did you reconcile all of the people and the negative energy that was sort of holding you in? How did you break through that moment?
Yeah. So first off, there were a group of people at my work that I enjoyed spending time with. So instead of, kind of going out and doing the buffet lunches or whatever most people do, we just went for walks throughout the day. We'd go out and we just laugh. We'd have fun. And then outside of work, it was more about just starting to connect with the different people, joining different communities, network groups, maybe a little bit on social media, definitely limiting certain, kind of the posts that come in. And it was just starting to surround myself with different people. That's the biggest key for making a transition is who you are, who you hang around, you eventually become. And, I always share, I'm like, you can put the earmuffs on for only so long. Eventually, all this noise eventually kind of makes its way in. And I'll share one quick story about, because you mentioned like retirement and things like that. I remember when there's sometimes when people, they're set to retire soon, they'll have a retirement clock above their desk and it's counting down 5 years, 50 days, 30 hours. I'm like, wow, like I want to continue to be happy as I'm getting into work. And there's one quick Tony Robbins quote that always stuck with me. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I think fulfillment is insanely underrated out there. Just you got to enjoy what you're doing, and you're at your job the majority of your awake time. So
yeah, no, you definitely gotta bring that in every day, right? It's not something why it's funny because I would have conversations as I departed this organization that I was with, and I stepped out onto to do my own thing, the thing that fulfilled me, right? Just like you. The questions would be, but you were so close, right? You were so close to retirement. You were so why? Like why? And it was hard to explain the why. Right. And it was hard to explain,
but it's easy to explain that why to the right people.
Yes. No, 100%. You end up, and this is what I love about your story, Mike. So there's two parts. One that stands out is, you made the best of the situation that you were in, right? So it's one thing to hate your job and to leave it because you bring that energy with you. But you converted the energy inside of the work that you were doing and finding the best of what you could do with the people that were there. Right. Like you said, instead of hitting the buffet lunches and coming in and just, passing out after work at your desk, you went for walks. You brought the energy up, right? We talk about movement. Movement's one of my things too, right? Movement every day, 30 minutes, like that's just going to bring and elevate your life in a really big way.
Right.
And you were able to do that. You were able to find those little things that most people just overlook, right? Like really just going for a walk, like what's that going to do for me?
Because sometimes we can't quit right away, because you need the funds to come in. And when you're making a transition, you just make the best that you can with what you have. So.
And that's the energy. Yeah. And that's the energy that you bring out with you, right? Like that's, as you're going into other endeavors, as you're going into other opportunities, that energy carries forward.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's exactly. You knew where you were, you were realistic with, this is the reality that's in front of me. But what can I do with this, right? And you made the best of it, right? And and the other part I really loved, Mike, was you asked for. It's almost like you asked for help because you were asking, "What are my options?" Right? A lot of people don't even know what their options are. They think, if I leave this and I quit and I don't get whatever that is, like how am I going to do the money thing? It's go ask questions.
Yeah, and one of the most powerful questions from Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Workweek, is what's the worst that can happen? Oftentimes we think it's a lot worse than it actually is.
That is so true. And then that fear it's like a brick wall in front of us. We're like, I'm not going to break through that. And also because often the people around us, our family members, our friends are like, why are you going to do something like that? You start to think like, oh, maybe I should listen. Am I the only one that feels this way? And my experience is that everyone feels pieces of this at some moment in their life, but are they in tune with hearing it, and are they ready to hear it? And so that if they're not ready, then they won't be on the same page or the same wavelength to understand where you are. So I love that. What's the worst that can happen? And in fact, I'm going to use that as everyone's call to action. So if you're listening to our podcast today, if you're listening and thinking, yeah, I couldn't do that, that scares me, I'm not ready, I don't have enough money, all of those things, I want you to actually journal about this. Journal about what's the worst worst thing that could happen? And just spend 5 minutes writing down all the worst things. And you're going to look at that list, and here's the magical part. Your brain automatically goes and looks for solutions. So it will then start to disassociate with those things and say, okay, so what? So what? That's what's going to happen. Is that really the worst thing? And I'll tell you, it never is. And when you face that fear, when you face the things that you think are going to happen, it will just find a solution. But don't worry about the how. So that is everyone's call to action. Yeah. Mike, I know you have so many more stories to share. And I want to thank you for coming on today. We're going to have you again in the new year, because epic living and say yes, like this is a perfect marriage. And of course, you know, we met when we were both living our epic lives. So thank you for the work that you do with Power Dads. Anything coming up for you that you want to let our audience know where they can check out Epic Living or Power Dads?
Yeah. So the Power Dad program is obviously for dads. You can check that out at powerdadprogram.com. Yeah, we'd love to have you in the community.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you, Mike. And listen, I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to have to talk. I just want to take a second, say hello to Felicia and share her celebration, because she popped in here, celebrating the last day of the year and learning from past mistakes and creating new goals for 2024, which is perfect, Felicia, because it ties into what we're going to be doing with our goal setting workshop on the 14th. So we're going to include a link. Make sure you register below and be a part of that. Heather and I are going to a place that we've never gone to before. So this is going to be pretty, I know, Heather, I'm scared now.
Why do you say that out loud?
Yeah, I know, whatever. Listen, it's all about being vulnerable, being in the moment, right? But, you know, I am in flow, right? I'm just being myself, and that's what I love, and that's who we are. And Mike, thank you again for being on the podcast with us. And for all of those that are listening in, thank you for being a part of this discussion. We would love it if you would just take this and share with some friends that really need to hear this message today, because they could be stuck in that moment, and this could be that one thing that gets them out of it. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Say Yes Movement podcast. Remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all soon. Take care.